One of the most startling facts I ever came across, well, I didn't come across it, someone told it to me, that 1/3 of the world was Christian. I was very young when they told me that. I was astonished. 1/3 of the world, 1 out of every 3 human beings. Wow, that's a big number. So how come there's war between these Christian nations? You know, because everybody wants peace on their terms. That's how they understand it. You know, they want peace that validates their political agenda, their economic agenda. That's how they want it. I don't have a political agenda. I don't have an economic one. I have a very human one. It's the premise of the peace movement is very simple. We don't engage in war because to do so we have to kill humans. To kill humans, you strike at the birthseed of God, because God arose from humanity. We will not do that. We just simply are not going to do that. And notice I'm talking about war. I have a moral obligation. If I see one of you guys or some stranger on the street being mugged, praying for peace right then and there is not going to save that person from being mugged. I promise you. You got to go do some laying on of hands. You know. I have no qualms about that. None. It's interesting that Yeshua identifies the existence of an enemy. You have heard it said of old, love your neighbor but hate your enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemy. He doesn't go, I say unto you, love the belligerent person. He doesn't say, thou shalt love the Republican but hate the Democrat. He uses the term enemy. Now that's interesting. He acknowledges the existence of enemies. So how do you respond? And which, yeah, who is the enemy? Well, my enemy, the one I'm always fighting against, struggling against, is me. Because that's the only enemy that can get inside my head. The person who stands on the outside of me yelling at me cannot get inside my head. My dark speaker has to open the door and dredge up all these hurtful feelings, passions that we all have, and set them loose. And when you set them loose at the guy in front of you, you become the victim. Try to recover from that one. They don't make a Band-Aid big enough to recover from that. The only enemy I really have is my own anger, my own rage, my own intolerance. That's my enemy. The person in front of me is trying to dredge it up. And I have to surrender it. I have to open the door to let that thing free. I don't think I'm going to do that. So how do I keep the door closed and not harm myself? Not create some kind of psychosis inside myself that turns me into a dingbat, schizophrenic. The art of grace, the etiquette of grace, you know. Everybody is subject to passion, for there's no fire that burns like passion. Remember that in the book of Yeshua? Yeah, that's a hot fire.
So when Yeshua says love your enemies, he's saying in a way to love yourself?
By loving your enemies, you protect yourself from yourself. And that's what he means. Just like turning the other cheek is not being a doormat. It is that one act of divine defiance. It is not announced by angry words. It's not announced by cold, hateful silence. It is that acceptance. You accept the enemy in front of you and will not respond in kind, because that's what the enemy needs. To justify what they're doing, they have to see their emotion etched on your face. And then the enemy will look at you and go, see, you're no better than I am. I'm justified. If you keep doing the same thing you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. I think you've got to change that. Do the unexpected. Throw the enemy off. And what you do is, you have this very kind acceptance, this very, gentle way about you. Bring someone in, offer them a spotted tea. I remember this grandmother in Florida, this guy was running away from the cops, broke into her house. He had a gun. He's a very dangerous man. You read it in the newspaper, saw it on TV. You know how she disarmed him? By being kind. Said, you look hungry. Let me get you something to eat. You can go ahead and keep your gun. You sit down right there. Don't you worry about that. You look hungry. I'm going to feed you. No judgment. Sat there and fed him. And while he was eating, she's going, son, your clothes are dirty. Why don't you take those clothes off and let me wash them for you, and I'll dry them for you. You put them back on. You have some nice clean clothes. The guy strips himself down and gives her, he's sitting there in his underwear. Of course, she lets him have his gun. And she goes down in the laundry room, washes his clothes, calls the cops. I got this guy over here, but he's armed, and I'm going to talk him down, and so we're all right. There's no need for anything. I'm feeding him right now. He's upstairs eating. He's hungry, and right now I'm going to wash his clothes. So she goes back up, and he's sitting there. He's eating. He's got his gun on the table, and she says, the cops are going to find you. You got a mama. You got family. How do you think they're going to feel if you get killed? Wouldn't that be kind of sad? You don't want your mama to go through that. She talked the guy into giving up. That's how you handle an enemy. She did everything that was not expected. Didn't plead for her life. Didn't call him a bad person. Just asked, how can I help you? You look hungry. Let me feed you. You look dirty. Let me wash your clothes. If a man comes and tells you you have to go a mile with him, go 2. If a man comes to you and says, give me your coat, do him one better. Give him your cloak also. Always do the enemy one better. Because it does something to them. It takes their breath away. They are fighting dead air. And it wears them out. I remember when I first moved to Boise, I was sitting in Municipal Park on my bench. This guy comes along, and he goes, of course he's looking at me. I had the long white hair and the long white beard. And he goes, who the fuck are you supposed to be, Moses? I just kind of looked at him and go, no, I'm supposed to be your friend. He says, friend, I don't even know you. And I go, well, my name's Azrael. And actually we had a very pleasant visit for about an hour. He's just a bad day. He's just having a bad day. We all have bad days. Everybody has a bad day. Does Azrael have a bad day? Of course I do. I don't think you'll ever see one, but trust me, I do. We all have bad days, and so you have to allow that other people have them, and you're going to help them through it. If you want the world to be better, It starts with you. It doesn't start with somebody else. It doesn't start with the government. It's not redressing the government. You know, I remember one time I had a conversation with Heavenly Father, and, you know, he talked about my civil rights, you know, Constitution. And Heavenly Father says, you have to give all that up. What, give up my civil rights? Well, yes, son. It'll only make you mad. You have to retain only one right. And no cop, no government, no state will ever want to take this one right that you claim away from you. I go, well, what's that? The right to be kind. Claim that as your only right, and you'll be surprised how people will treat you. Well, isn't that interesting? The Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother came and said, we want you to change the world for us. I said, you want me to do what? And it's a pretty damn big place. I'm just one person. Heavenly Mother goes, well, son, change yourself. After that, the world's going to be easy. And so we spend our lifetimes trying to change ourselves, but you have to be persistent. And one of the things you cannot do, we all have a tendency to do it, and that's to give up on yourself. You get so disappointed in yourself, you get so despondent and depressed about yourself, that you think you're a hopeless case, and you walk away from you. And then one day you look in the mirror and you can't see yourself anymore. You wonder where you went. Well, you left yourself over there when you gave up on yourself. What's needed for the world is a new model of a peace movement, the one you don't expect. You know, it's quiet. It just does its thing. Your job is to make God real. Your job is to make God alive. And you do that by doing the unexpected. You will be surprised how many punches you will slip. They won't be able to hit you because you know the etiquette of grace. You know, we're not here to judge people. I'm not here to condemn them. You know, I'm here to help them along. If they're angry and upset, listen to them. Don't preach a sermon at them. They'll get kind of resentful, and they're already hurt. We don't do that. We just simply live peaceably. No ticker tape parade, no fanfare, no look at me, see how wonderful I am. Don't do your alms before men. We're not Christians. You know, we're not expecting a tax credit. You know, it's done quietly. Until one day, the leaders of the nations will look out at the world and they'll see an ocean of peace staring back at them. And they'll wonder where it all came from. That's what we do. But it will take your life.